Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we're talking about Pauper because Double Masters is providing us with some pretty sweet new Pauper cards. So if you are familiar with master sets, they don't follow the traditional rules of rarity. Like normally, there's a very set power level that commons can have. But in master sets, that kind of goes out the window. It's just about reprinting stuff and creating a unique draft environment. So even though it's all reprints, sometimes uncommons and even rares will get downshifted to common, making them Pauper legal. So we actually get literal rares from main sets that are suddenly Pauper legal because they're printed as common in a master set. So these master sets do a lot to shake up the format. It's super cool. Like nothing gets me more excited about Pauper than a master set. So let's take a look at all the new Pauper cards and see what's good and what's not. So first off with white, we get Alabaster Mage, Ancestral Blade, Crib Swap, Crusader of Odrick, and Sanctum Spirit. So starting off with Alabaster Mage, not too exciting. 2 mana, 2/1, pay 2, gives a creature lifelink. Not super excited about it. Ancestral Blade is a 2 mana equipment that can equip for 1. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 token, and then the equipped creature gets +1/+1, which isn't that bad. It kind of reminds me of the equipment in the Affinity deck, right? You get a token out of it, so not terrible, not exceptional, but decent. Crib Swap is probably the more exciting one for me. 3 mana, exile any creature, no restrictions, though the controller does get a 1/1 shapeshifter. And the fact that they get a 1/1 is kind of a pretty big drawback, but this kind of seems like the Pauper equivalent of like Path to Exile now, right? 3 mana instant, exile anything, but they do get something out of it. After that is Crusader of Odrick, which is kind of crazy. So it's a 3 mana, has power and toughness each equal to the number of creatures you control. We have seen this already. Actually, we had a rare downshift into common in one of the other master sets, and that hasn't seen a ton of play. The difference here is that Crusader is in white, and white is really good at going wide with tokens. So I think this is better than what we have, but there is still the question of, is it good enough in Pauper? But I think this one has potential. And after that we have Sanctum Spirit, 4 mana, 3/2, lifelink, and then you can discard a card to give it indestructible. You know, it seems like pretty typical bulk. So white didn't get too much here, right? Like Crib Swap is decent, Crusader of Odrick, fine. Ancestral Blade might be playable, but it gets a lot more exciting, as we're literally about to see with blue, because blue gets Argivian Restoration, Froggify, and Vadalkin Infuser, and I think all of these are potentially playable. So Argivian Restoration, 4 mana, return an artifact card from the graveyard straight to the battlefield. That has combo shenanigans written all over it, and it's in blue, so I can definitely see this being playable. I don't know what the shell is, but 4 mana, returning an artifact straight to the battlefield. There's gotta be something with this, right? There has to be. After that, Froggify. Froggify is one of these, you know, the type of removal that blue gets. It's an aura, enchants creature. When it enchants creature, that creature loses all abilities and becomes a 1/1. So, you know, it's not good removal, but it's removal in blue, and it's again, this is the type of removal card that blue gets. You know, you get the tap a creature down forever so long as it's enchanted, that sort of stuff. So it's within the realm of what you would expect blue removal to be. But then we have Vadalkin Infuser, 4 mana, 1/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on target artifact. Has plenty of uses. There are some artifacts that use charge counters in Pauper. Some of them are even already playable. Some of them are already being played in sideboards and stuff. So I can definitely see this being played, and there's actually more uses for this a little bit later. But moving on to black, we have Bone Picker, Cast Down, and Heartless Pillage. So Bone Picker is probably the most crazy out of, well, no, maybe it's not. But Bone Picker is really crazy, right? 4 mana, 3/2, Flying Death Touch, not exciting. Not super excited about that. But if a creature died this turn, it costs 3 or less. So it's a 1 mana, 3/2, Flying Death Touch if you killed a creature. So if you play 1/1 on turn 1 and your opponent plays a 1/1 on their turn, and then you attack and they trade, you can just play this for 1. But more importantly, actually, even if it doesn't come out until like turn 3 or 4, the fact that you can blow up a creature and then use the fact that that creature died to pay 1 for this means that you can blow up a creature and deploy a threat in the same turn. So that's what makes Bone Picker so good. It's not that a 4 mana 3/2 is good, and it's not that it's going to be necessarily the most aggressive. You're probably not going to get this on turn 2 or turn 3 very often, but the fact that you can blow up a creature and put out a reasonable threat in the same turn makes Bone Picker actually pretty good. And then Cast Down is absolutely insane. 2 mana, instant speed, destroy target non-legendary creature. Now, do you know how many legendary creatures there are in Pauper? There are none. Okay, fine. Technically there are some. This batch of legends, but they're not really playable, right? They're these old, these really bad legends from the legend set. Not great. So basically 2 mana, destroy anything in the format at instant speed. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. I've seen Doomblade being played in Pauper, and this is better. I've seen Grasp of Darkness being played in Pauper, and this is better. It's probably going to be the best targeted removal spell in the format. 2 mana, destroy anything, instant speed, destroys basically everything playable in the it destroys everything playable in the format, and almost like 99.9% of the entire format. So cast down, insane, probably going to be a premier removal spell in Pauper going forward. Pretty great. And then Heartless Pillars, 3 mana, target opponent discards 2 cards, and if you attack with a creature, you get a treasure token. It's kind of whatever. But Bone Picker, cast down, definitely the best of the bunch in black, and 2 of the better cards going into the format, I think. Though there's still some more spiciness, because in red we get a Braid, pretty crazy, Balduvian Rage, Kazuo's Tool Collector, Orcish Vandal, and Rapacious Dragon. So a Braid, once again, much like Cast Down, this is a premier removal spell. It's going to be more of a sideboard card probably, but 2 mana, 3 damage to a creature or destroy an artifact. This is played in Pioneer, this is played in Modern, in sideboards, because it's really flexible. The fact that you can use 1 sideboard slot as a creature removal spell and an affinity killer, right? It can destroy artifacts, so it can destroy artifact-based combo decks. It can destroy affinity, anything in affinity. It can destroy anything in hardened scales. Really good in Modern, and now it's going into Pauper in a format where all the creatures are small, right? All the creatures are much smaller than in Modern, so 3 damage is going to destroy most of the creatures in the format, like probably much more than half, I would say, probably more than 75% of the format. And also it's relevant in Pauper because affinity is relevant in Pauper. So having a sideboard slot for a removal spell that can target most of the creatures in the format and also one of the top decks in the format is probably going to be really good. I imagine this is going to be played in many Pauper sideboards going forward. Then we have Balduvian Rage. Target attacking creature gets +X/+0 and it costs X. Not that exciting. It does allow you to draw a card at the beginning of the next turn. I don't know if this is better than like just playing an X mana deal X damage spell. I mean, you do get to draw a card, so maybe some decks do play it just so they can get the +X/+0 and then get the card. It is instant too, by the way, so you can put it on an unblocked creature. It's kind of fine, it's okay. I'm not super excited about it, but I think it's reasonable. And then we have Kazuo's Tool Collector, 3 mana, 3/2, pay 0 to attach target equipment you control to the creature. When I first saw this, I was like, is there really enough equipment to make this viable? I mean, the idea here, right, is that you put tons of equipment in play, and you play this, you attach it all, and make this thing freaking huge. And initially I was like, I don't know if there's really enough, but there is some pretty good equipment. You know, you have like Bone Splitter Axe, and actually going forward, you're going to see a few more really good equipment because there's actually some pretty spicy new pieces of equipment that could go right on Tool Collector. We'll get to those in just a little bit. So next, Orcish Vandal, 2 mana, 1/1, tap, sacrifice an artifact to deal 2 damage to any target. This is okay. It's not exceptionally good, but it was played a little bit when it was in standard. I don't really see this as a card that you're going to build around necessarily, although there probably are combos with it. But the important thing here is it's a good sideboard piece for affinity decks. If you're going to be matched up against stuff with lots of spot removal, you can throw this in, sacrifice everything that gets killed to deal 2 damage. And also it's really nice for like Boros Bully deck, right? Like the decks that have lots of kind of do nothing mana rocks that you use in the early game but then don't need in the late game. Orcish Vandal, not really that bad in those types of decks. I don't think it's going to be a tier 1 card, I don't think. Could be wrong, but I could definitely see it being played. And I could be totally wrong, it could be a tier 1 card, but it definitely seems decent. And then Rapacious Dragon, this isn't that exciting, but it is a dragon. So it's a 5 mana 3/3 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield we get 2 treasure tokens. Not good, not great, not that exciting. But what is exciting is it's a dragon in Pauper. And the reason that's important is because we do have this, right? We sort of have dragon tribal cards. There just aren't enough dragons in Pauper. It's very rare for a dragon to be printed at common. So even though I don't think this card is exceptionally good, I do think that every single dragon that's added to the format is probably relevant, and it makes that dragon tribal deck slightly more viable each time. And as an added bonus, those treasure tokens can be sacrificed with Orcish Vandal, so that's cool, right? But yeah, that's it for red. I think, you know, a Braid is pretty crazy. I think Orcish Vandal might be pretty good too, and And the tool collector, we'll see. I want to talk about this more, but just hang on. We gotta get to the artifacts. And before we get to artifacts, we gotta do green. We have Clear Shot and Conclave Naturalist. I swear, maybe I'm just imagining it, but I swear every time I do one of these videos, because I used to do these for every master, I still do them for every master set. There just hasn't been one in a while, but every time I do these, I'm like, man, green doesn't really get much. And once again, Clear Shot, 3 mana instant. Target creature gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn, and then it deals damage equal to its power. To target creature you don't. So it's one of these pseudo green removal things where you have to have a big creature for it to be relevant. I think it's okay, but I don't know if it's really gonna be played. If it was a +1/+1 counter, I might feel different about it, but I don't know. It could be okay, but I'm not too excited about it. We'll see. It's one of those we'll see cards. I'm not super incentivized to play it, but maybe it's better than I think. I don't know. And then Conclave Naturalist, 5 mana 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target artifact or enchantment. It's a very expensive way to destroy artifacts or enchantments, though if you're playing a stumpy deck to begin with, maybe it's okay. Like if you're already ramping, if you're ramping into this to destroy an artifact or enchantment, maybe it's okay as a sideboard card in a mono green stompy rampy type of thing. But beyond that, I don't know, we'll see, but it seems a little bit expensive. It has to be very specifically in a deck that's looking to hit 5 mana by like turn 3. Otherwise, I'm not sure if it's quite good enough, but we'll see. So that's green. Not much happening in green, unfortunately. But then we go to artifacts, and this is where things get a little bit spicy. So we get Everflowing Chalice, interesting. Golem Skin Gauntlets, Iron League Steed, Magnifying Glass, Mirror Retriever, Skin Wing, and Surge Node. Okay, so Everflowing Chalice is kind of crazy. It just kind of blows my mind that this is Pauper legal. I mean, it was uncommon before, so it's not like it was that far off, but it's just so weird. This card is like, it's not ever really super competitive in non-commander formats. Like you'll see it every once in a while, but it's not great. If you're not familiar, 0 mana, it has multi-kicker 2, and then it gets a charge counter for each time it was kicked, and then you can tap it to add 1 mana for each charge counter. So if you pay 2, it gets a charge counter, and it can tap for 1. If you pay 4, it can tap for 2. If you pay 6, it can tap for 3. But anyway, this card is often used in really janky combo decks, and sometimes they're actually like really fun and kind of good. So seeing this in Pauper is kind of interesting because it is a much slower format, so that makes this much more relevant. The fact that I have seen people playing this in Modern, which is as fast as it is, and now it's legal in a much slower format, is kind of interesting. That's why this is playable in Commander, because Commander is much slower. You take many more turns, you typically have much more mana, and because of that, Everflowing Chalice is much more relevant, and that's sort of true for Pauper as well. Pauper games go longer, you take more turns, they're a little bit slower, and because of that, Everflowing Chalice is probably going to be more relevant in Pauper than it is in Modern and Legacy and whatnot. It also works really well with Vadalkin Infuser that we saw earlier. You get to add a charge counter to this every turn, and then it taps for more and more mana every turn. Isn't that crazy? So Vadalkin Infuser, pretty okay like by itself, but we get Everflowing Chalice, that's pretty cool. And then we have Golem Skin Gauntlets. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each equipment attached to it. This is what I wanted to talk about earlier when I was talking about the Ogre, the Toll Collector. 3 mana 3/2, not exciting, but you can attach this and all of your other equipment, and it gets freaking huge. And we're gonna get this out of order because I want to talk about this as well. Skin Wing, this was one of the other cards. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and flying. 4 mana, not great, right? By itself, it does have living weapon, so you get a pest token. So 4 mana, 2/2 flyer, not great. And then you have to equip it for 6, also not great. But with the Toll Collector, let's say you play the Gauntlets on turn 1, you play the Toll Collector on turn 3, then you could play the Skin Wing and just equip it to the Toll Collector for free. And at that point, you have a 7/4 flyer on turn 4. Now it's a little bit janky, don't get me wrong, but that's what makes the Toll Collector kind of interesting. Like if you can give it flying, if you can give it haste, if you can get these gauntlets on it, then that's kind of relevant. It's going to be very vulnerable to removal spells, but if you can get equipment that gives a hexproof for a Shroud or whatever, that's fine, because Shroud totally works. It doesn't target itself, so yeah, pretty good. So Toll Collector could be kind of interesting with these equipment, so not bad. After that we have Iron League Steed, which pretty bad, not super excited about this. 4 mana, 2/2 haste, not good. Fabricate 1, not great. Very similar to the modular card, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but this one, that's not playable either really, so comparable cards, neither are that exciting. Magnifying Glass, just a really clunky mana rock. 3 mana, taps for 1, pretty bad. And then 4 mana to investigate's fine, but you're basically paying 6 mana to draw a card, 4 mana and tapping this, and then paying 2 to sacrifice the clue. I'm not super excited about it. Mirror Retriever, this one's crazy, right? Anyone who plays combo decks knows how stupid and crazy Mirror Retriever is. 2 mana 1/1. When it dies, it returns target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. Everyone who plays combo is familiar with the Retriever. Retriever is the pet card of many a combo deck because it can just cycle itself. You can just cycle them into the graveyard, back to your hand, into the graveyard, back to your hand. If you can find a way to reduce the cost and sacrifice it, infinite combos are abound. Mirror Retriever, definitely popular in combo decks. And then we have Surge Node, once again, a charge counter card. 1 mana, enters the battlefield with 6 charge counters, and then you can pay 1, tap it to move a charge counter from itself to something else. So once again, we see like Surge Node, Everflowing Chalice, and Vadalkin Infuser. We're starting to get these charge counters matter cards, and I don't know, that could very well be a shell of something. I mean, it works with like Golem Foundry, right? Golem Foundry, remove 3 charge counters from it, put a 3/3, and then you have Surge Node, you have Vadalkin Infuser to put counters on it. There's also Shriekhorn if you want to mill. You can even go with like Necrogen Sensor, right? If it has charge counters on it, you can remove them to have target player lose 2 life. So there's a lot we could do with charge counters, and I think there's actually some interesting utility with these charge counter cards. And that's it. So now you guys see, right? We only got 25 new cards. That's a lot less than your average set, but they're cards that are more powerful than you would expect from your average standard legal set. And that's what we get with master sets. Master sets just gives us way more power than your average set, and that's really cool for Pauper because it finally will shake up the format and maybe we'll get some spicy new decks. So yeah, there you go guys. Let me know what you're most excited about in the comments below. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.